Okay, so we've got three pretty cool things today. Two smaller ones, and then one is a little bit bigger. So to kick it off is this new fuzzy match setting or toggle in evaluations. So the default, which is what we've had, is kind of literal matching, where if you have an expected result and then the results and says, are they a match or not, which works if you're expecting the same result every time, but kind of makes this pretty useless in terms of feedback for these more non-deterministic things where you're generally just trying to, like, you want to make sure that it generally is the right vibe, and then you might want to make sure that like some structure, like if it's JSON or something like that, you want that, if this says processes customer comments versus interprets customer feedback, like for the purpose of this evaluation, that should be considered a pass. And so if you click this to change it to fuzzy match and run it, it's going to do the same processing as usual. And then when it gets back the result, it's going to run them through another AI worker that basically just does kind of subjective string comparison and also pays particular attention to JSON keys. So like we can see down here that this one that I kind of manually futzed with to have incorrect keys is a fail. This one has correct keys, but I copied the description from another one. So the actual content doesn't make sense, but the keys are correct. So this gets kind of a warning. Basically, it returns a score from 0 to 5 for how kind of equal the two results are. So this is really cool, really powerful in terms of being able to use this expected result part of evaluations for these more subjective and non-deterministic AI workers. So that's the first one. And then if we go into automations here, the second one is a new option on our end block here. You can see this notifications, which is available for end session mode. And this basically allows you to set it up so you can get an email notification when a run that's started by an API call completes. And, super simple. You can add as many emails as you want in here. And basically, anytime that this AI worker is invoked via API, you will get an email with the status of the run and also kind of a snippet of the last message that came through. So if you want to set this up to just, run every day and you don't want to come back to MindStudio to see the result, this is a really easy way to do that. You could also do this using a custom function block, obviously, and you could especially do that for more robust integrations, but this felt like a simple thing to add that doesn't require kind of any additional configuration by the user, because I think a lot of our send function blocks and things like that make you set up your own, SendGrid account or something, whatever it is you're going to be using. And then the last cool thing here, the coolest one, is this new triggers section on the start block. And so by default, it's set to on demand, which is kind of the way we've been using these apps until now, which is they kind of sit there and do nothing until someone shows up and clicks new thread or new run, or until they receive an API request, either from code or from an automation platform. There's now a new option for scheduled runs, and these are effectively just cron jobs. This is a pretty common use case we've seen where people want to basically say, hey, I want to run this worker, every day at 10 a.m. or, every Tuesday at midnight or on the last day of the month or some combination of all of that. And right now, if they want to do that, they either need a developer to, write some kind of cron job that makes an API request, or they need to go and set this thing up inside of Zapier or some other automation platform to be able to use some kind of scheduling functionality, which is, overkill if all you're trying to do is just kick something off on a scheduled time. So this basically allows us to schedule runs of these things, and then they'll happen, and then you, if you want, you'll get an email notification at the end. And the interface for scheduling, I'm actually quite pleased with. So cron is a very powerful syntax way of doing things, very flexible. It's basically how computers just schedule things and determine when to run them. But it's kind of a pain in the ass to write for humans, even if you know how to do it. And on the other side, like a lot of UI for creating and managing frequencies and recurrences of recurring events is also always kind of clunky and kludgy. Like if you look at like even Google Calendar trying to set up a recurring event, it's like generally makes sense, but it's not really the nicest way of doing it. So what we've done now is made a little AI worker that you can give it kind of just a, human version of an event recurrence, and it converts it into a cron string. And so, we can look at some of these examples down here. So say we wanted to run this thing every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m. I would type that in here. And now we get back basically the rule that does this. We can see kind of for convenience when the next run would be, which is Wednesday at 10 a.m. in my time zone. And we can kind of look at all these future runs and just make sure that everything looks good. And, if you hover over this, you can see the cron expression that it actually generated in there, 0, 10, star, star, 1, 3, 5. Cool. Or, simple ones are just kind of every 30 minutes. And you can do the same thing here. You can also do some more complex sorts of things. And you can set the time zone, and also if you wanted to set launch variables to run the request, you can do that as well. So that's useful because you can add more than one of these things. Like I might, run this with one variable in the morning and save it. And then I might run it again, in the evening with a different variable and save that. So you can kind of stack these up. And yeah, so those are, all three of these are ready to go. There's a little issue with the API branch deployment right now that needs to be resolved before they can get out, but these are all ready and I think are going to make a lot of people very happy that we now support them.